By April 18, 1906, San Francisco had become something unprecedented. The largest city west of Chicago, the richest city in the American West. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic photographs to life, allowing us to move through San Francisco as it appeared in April 1906. What you're about to see is a city that rebuilt itself while still burning. This is San Francisco in 1900, population 342,000. The gold rush was 50 years in the past, but the money remained. The city sat on 7 hills overlooking the Pacific: Telegraph Hill, Nob Hill, Russian Hill, Bayeve, natural amphitheaters facing the bay. The wealthiest families lived on Nob Hill. Their mansions cost over $1 million each. In today's money, that's $30 million per house. The financial district covered 40 blocks. Over 300 banks operated in the city. More than New York per capita. The harbor was the busiest on the West Coast. 500 ships docked there monthly. Cargo from Asia, lumber from Oregon, gold from Nevada. Chinatown occupied 12 blocks. The population there exceeded 25,000. It was the largest Chinese community outside Asia. The Palace Hotel stood 7 stories tall. Inside were 755 rooms. The restaurant could seat 400 diners. The building covered an entire city block. San Francisco sat on the San Andreas Fault. Scientists knew this. The city knew this. Construction continued anyway. Buildings rose with brick and wood, unreinforced masonry, timber frames. Building codes existed, but enforcement was minimal. The city's water system relied on underground pipes, cast iron, laid in the 1870s. No one had tested them for earthquakes. Fire stations used horse-drawn equipment. Response time averaged 6 minutes. The fire chief was Dennis Sullivan. He'd spent 30 years preparing for the big fire. He knew it would come. Then it came. April 18th, 1906. The earthquake began at 5:12 in the morning. It lasted 48 seconds. The shaking began at the San Andreas Fault, 70 miles north of the city. The rupture traveled south. Its speed reached 7,000 miles per hour. The fault moved 20 feet horizontally. 20 feet in less than a minute. The first jolt woke the city. The second jolt knocked buildings down. The third jolt destroyed the water system. Every underground pipe broke. Every single one. The Palace Hotel's walls cracked but held. Its 755 guests evacuated in nightclothes. Some had time to dress. Most did not. City Hall collapsed. It had cost $6 million to build. Construction took 20 years. The building fell in 40 seconds. The Valencia Hotel pancaked. 4 stories became 1. 80 people were inside. Most died instantly. Dennis Sullivan, the fire chief, died in the first minute. His fire station collapsed on him. The man who'd prepared for this moment never saw the fire. 52 fires started in the first hour. Gas lines ruptured. Chimneys fell through roofs. Live coals scattered. Firefighters arrived at hydrants. They attached hoses. They turned the valves. Nothing came out. The fires merged. By noon, 3 separate fire fronts were moving through the city. One from the waterfront, one from south of Market Street, one from the financial district. The army arrived from the Presidio. General Frederick Funston commanded 1,700 troops. He had no authorization from Washington. He came anyway. Funston ordered dynamite. He planned to create fire breaks, blow up buildings before the fire reached them. The dynamite made things worse. The explosions started new fires. The technique required training. The soldiers had none. The fire moved 4 blocks per hour. It consumed everything wooden. Brick buildings crumbled in the heat. Iron beams bent like wire. People fled to the parks. Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, Alamo Square. They brought what they could carry. Over 200,000 people slept outdoors the first night. Tents made from bedsheets, shelters built from salvaged wood, fires for cooking, fires for warmth. The wealthy and the poor camped together. Class distinctions disappeared. Everyone needed food. Everyone needed water. The fire burned for 3 days. That's 72 hours of flames. The destruction covered 4 square miles. Over 28,000 buildings were gone. Only one force stopped it: the Navy. On the 3rd day, Navy crews used seawater. They pumped directly from the bay. They established a defensive line along Van Ness Avenue. Van Ness was 125 feet wide, too wide for the fire to jump. The Navy soaked every building. They worked for 24 hours straight. The fire reached Van Ness on April 20th. It stopped there. By April 21st, the fire was contained, not extinguished, contained. Smaller fires burned for weeks. The official death toll was 478. The real number was higher, much higher. Chinatown's dead went uncounted. The poor went unnamed. Insurance companies sent investigators immediately. They documented everything. Damages exceeded $400 million. In today's money, that's $13 billion. Within a week, refugee camps held 200,000 people. The army provided tents. The city provided nothing. There was no city. Kitchens appeared in the parks, communal cooking. Women who'd never cooked on open fires learned. Women who'd employed servants now served soup. Mail delivery continued. Postal workers marked addresses on rubble. If your house was gone, they left letters on the foundation. The banks reopened within days. Answer of story to lawyer. If the private of days on ponders and freight, steading our avoidings, a pretenster. They operated from tents, from ruins. Deposits were honored. The city's credit held. Rebuilding started before the smoke cleared. Business owners cleared their own lots. They didn't wait for the city. They couldn't afford to. The first new building opened in June, 2 months after the earthquake. A wooden structure on Market Street. By December, over 20,000 buildings were under construction. The sound of hammering never stopped. Dawn to dusk, 7 days a week. The city banned wooden buildings downtown, only steel and concrete. The new code was strict. Enforcement was absolute. Banks financed everything. Eastern banks wouldn't lend. Western banks stepped in. They bet on the city's survival. The population returned. By 1907, San Francisco held 400,000 people, more than before the earthquake. The 1915 Panama Pacific Exposition opened on reclaimed land, on ash and rubble. 9 years had passed since the disaster. The Expo drew 18 million visitors. The Palace Hotel was rebuilt by 1909. It stood 7 stories again, even larger than before. Chinatown returned to the same location, same 12 blocks. The city tried to relocate it. The community refused. The city paid for none of this. Private money rebuilt San Francisco. Banks, businesses, families, By 1910, you couldn't tell the city had burned. New buildings, wider streets, better infrastructure. But the photographs remained. Images of ruins stretching for miles. Tent cities in parks, women in fine dresses cooking on brick stoves in the street. The disaster exposed everything: how cities work, how they fail, how people rebuild. San Francisco in 1906, the richest city in the West, destroyed in 3 days, rebuilt in 3 years. The speed defined everything. The earthquake lasted 48 seconds. The fire burned for 72 hours. The rebuilding took a decade, but the speed was the statement. The city refused to die. It refused to wait. It refused help from Washington. This is what that looked like.